In addressing our theme, Is Your Best Good Enough? I'd like to start by reading Galatians 6:4. It says, "But let each one examine his own actions, and then he will have cause for rejoicing in regard to himself alone, and not in comparison with the other person." We're told to examine our own actions. So ask yourself, how am I doing spiritually? Am I happy with my attendance at Christian meetings? Do I participate by sharing meaningful comments as able? How about my personal study of the Bible? Let me examine my involvement in the ministry. Could I do better in preparing for my return visits? Do I conduct any Bible studies with interested ones? If so, am I content with what I am doing? In effect, you're asking yourself, is my best good enough?
Yes, Samuel Hurd is here asking Jehovah's Witnesses to examine their track record and decide whether they are giving enough as believers. Are they involved enough in the preaching work? Are they attending enough meetings? Are they doing enough study? What we're in for here, viewers, is just one long talk in which Jehovah's Witnesses are going to be guilt-tripped. There's no other way of putting this. Repeatedly, Samuel Hurd is going to be asking Jehovah's Witnesses, is your best good enough? And he's going to try to answer the question, how can Jehovah's Witnesses know whether their best is good enough? And spoiler alert, by the end of this, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't going to be completely clear on that, because it turns out there is no easy way of knowing. One thing that we have learned, according to this scripture, is that it's not about comparison. It's not about comparing what you're doing with another Jehovah's Witness. But it's easier said than done, because Jehovah's Witnesses only have other Jehovah's Witnesses by which they can compare how active they are in service. And as we're going to find out, it's not as simple as a Jehovah's Witness saying, well, I think I'm doing everything I can. I think my best is good enough. What we're in for here is a talk that is just going to remind Jehovah's Witnesses of everything they should be doing, a talk that will remind witnesses that it's not simply about trying hard, it's about giving everything you possibly can to the organization.
We might see others in the congregation that are doing more than we are. But then we look back at Galatians 6:4 again, and it clearly said that I should not compare myself with the other person. So we could quickly assume that we're doing what we can, reasoning that it's good enough. But let's not forget the first part of the verse. We are to examine our own actions. We need to compare what we are doing with what we personally could be doing. We need to be active and not become self-satisfied and overconfident. 1 Corinthians 10:12 provides this warning. So let the one who thinks he is standing beware that he does not fall. But you may say, I'm doing my best. What more can I do? Take a good look at your best. Scrutinize it. Examine very closely all you're doing with the time that you have. Can mundane activity be replaced with theocratic activity? What do you see? Is your best good enough? It may be, it may not.
What we're watching here is an open invitation for Jehovah's Witnesses to sink into guilt and self-loathing if they're not spending every waking moment in service to the organization. How else do we interpret this? Okay, we've been told that according to Galatians 6 verse 4, Jehovah's Witnesses don't need to compare themselves with each other, in fact, shouldn't compare themselves with each other. But arguably, what Samuel Hurd is suggesting here is even more unattainable than simply comparing oneself with a fellow believer. He's just told us,
can mundane activity be replaced with theocratic activity?
Samuel Hurd, people need the mundane activity. People cannot realistically be spending every waking moment serving you and serving your organization. How dare you hold people to such a ridiculous standard, telling them that they're being self-satisfied and overconfident if they're not serving you fully. He also says,
we need to compare what we are doing with what we personally could be doing.
Well, it's physically possible, I suppose, that a Jehovah's Witness could spend every waking minute either preaching to people, going to meetings, preparing for meetings, or doing personal study. It's physically possible, I suppose, that they could literally do nothing but that between sleeping, you know, studying their watchtower on the toilet perhaps, or eating food while they're doing their meeting preparation, preparing food, cooking while they're doing something theocratic. It's possible, I guess, but is it advisable? Is that a healthy way for someone to live? To literally do nothing but activities that are to Samuel Hurd's benefit or to the benefit of the governing body? Is that a healthy way to live? When I look at myself as someone who is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I guess it's personally possible that I could swim the English Channel. I am 41. I'm not morbidly obese. I guess with a bit of practice and a bit of training, it would be possible that I could attempt to swim the English Channel. Would it be advisable for me to swim the English Channel? Well, that's another story, isn't it? Because without decrying those who do swim the channel, without wishing to in any way shame long-distance swimmers, it's a dangerous pastime, quite frankly. People have died attempting to swim the channel. It wouldn't be much of a consolation, would it, if I did attempt to swim the channel, let's say because I felt it was my duty, I felt it was my obligation for some reason to do it because it was physically possible for me to attempt to swim the channel. It wouldn't be much of a consolation to my family, to my wife and children, if I died in the attempt. Perhaps I ran out of energy and drowned maybe a mile from shore. Oh, well, it was physically possible. He could have done it, but it just didn't work out on this occasion. Oops, sorry about that, family. Just because something is physically within your power doesn't make it advantageous. And how dare you, Samuel Hurd, shame millions of Jehovah's Witnesses into thinking that if they're not spending every waking hour doing things that you approve of, they're somehow missing the mark. They're somehow failing because they need to be committing themselves 24/7 to being Jehovah's Witnesses and doing Jehovah's Witness activities. I'm here to tell you, Samuel Hurd, that there is merit in doing nothing. There is merit in sitting back and watching Netflix. There is merit in playing Call of Duty or Minecraft or whatever computer game takes your fancy. There is merit in going to the cinema or to the gym or playing football or just sleeping, just having a nap in the middle of the day. There is merit in that because we're human beings. We're not robots. We're not machines where every single second of our day needs to be accounted for in terms of productivity. It's okay to just enjoy life and enjoy living. And frankly, it would be unhealthy to assume that every single minute must be accounted for, and we need to constantly be working in some form to help some organization, religious or otherwise. This sort of guilt tripping is typical of the Jehovah's Witness organization. I'm so relieved that I'm no longer subjected to this on a weekly basis. The reality is that as a Jehovah's Witness, you're constantly on this hamster wheel where the more you do, the more you feel like you could be doing more, because the more you exert yourself and the more you climb the ladder in the organization, the more you feel it's your duty to listen to buffoons like Samuel Hurd when they tell you, oh, is your best good enough? Are you becoming self-satisfied and overconfident? You could feel like you are doing enough, and you could feel guilty for feeling that way when you listen to words like these. You could feel guilty for feeling satisfied and confident that you're doing your best. Talks like this, whether they're at the Kingdom Hall or in this case on the JW Broadcasting episode, will eat away at you and leave you thinking, I could be doing more. I should be doing more. You know what? I'm going to do more.